Welcome to Global Watch. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In international diplomacy, some of the most consequential conflicts begin quietly, with a single line drawn on a map. What may seem like a simple stroke of ink can, in reality, set the stage for decades of tension, negotiation, and even confrontation. Borders are not just lines, they are symbols of sovereignty, pride, and sometimes deep-seated historical grievances. The world has witnessed time and again how a new map can ignite old disputes, turning cartography into a catalyst for crisis. Today, November 11, 2025, the Philippines has published a new map, boldly including the disputed Scarborough Shoal within its territory. This move is not just a technical update, it's a statement to the world, a declaration of intent and identity. For the people of the Philippines, this map represents a long-standing claim, a hope for recognition, and a stand against what they see as encroachment. The unveiling was met with applause at home, but with alarm abroad. This act has sent shockwaves across the South China Sea, provoking a furious response from China and raising global tensions. Beijing immediately condemned the map, calling it a provocation and a violation of its own territorial claims. The region, already a flashpoint, now finds itself at the center of renewed diplomatic and military maneuvering. The world's attention is fixed on these waters, where every move is scrutinized and every statement carries weight. The stakes are enormous. Over a third of global maritime trade passes through these contested waters, making the South China Sea one of the world's most vital arteries for commerce. Any miscalculation here could disrupt supply chains, impact economies, and even draw in major powers like the United States, which has long maintained a presence in the region to ensure freedom of navigation. The world's prosperity, in many ways, flows through these waters. The Philippines map is more than a document. It's a political declaration, challenging Beijing's expansive claims and testing the strength of international law. Legal experts and diplomats are now poring over treaties, court rulings, and historical records, searching for arguments and precedents. For Manila, this is a test of its resolve and its ability to rally international support. For Beijing, it's a challenge to its vision of regional dominance. China's reaction, military drills and a blockade, shows its determination to hold on to what it considers its own, regardless of international rulings. The show of force is meant to send a clear message: China will not back down, and it is willing to use its growing military might to defend its claims. The world watches as warships maneuver and tensions rise, wondering if diplomacy can keep the peace. As the world watches, the question remains: can law and diplomacy prevail, or will might make right in the South China Sea? The coming days will test not only the resolve of nations, but the very foundations of the international order. In this high-stakes contest, every word, every map, and every maneuver could tip the balance between peace and conflict. To truly grasp the roots of today's crisis, we must look closely at Scarborough Shoal itself, a seemingly insignificant atoll, yet one that has become a powerful symbol of national pride, sovereignty, and survival for millions. This small ring of rocks and reefs, battered by the waves of the South China Sea, has become the center of a storm that stretches far beyond its shallow waters. The Philippines asserts its claim to the shoal based on its close proximity to Luzon, its long history of fishing and navigation in these waters, and the principles of international law. Filipino maps from the early 20th century clearly mark the shoal as part of their territory, and for decades, Filipino fishermen have relied on its rich fishing grounds for their livelihoods. The government points to these facts, as well as to international rulings, to argue that the shoal rightfully belongs to the Philippines. China, on the other hand, draws on ancient records, centuries-old surveys, and its sweeping 9-dash line to claim not just Scarborough Shoal, but nearly the entire South China Sea. Chinese maps and documents, some dating back to imperial times, are presented as evidence of a long-standing connection to these waters. For Beijing, the shoal is a vital part of its maritime heritage and a strategic asset in asserting its regional influence. These competing claims do not exist in isolation. Several Southeast Asian nations, including Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei, also assert rights to parts of the South China Sea, creating a tangled web of overlapping boundaries and interests. The result is a region fraught with tension, where diplomatic efforts often falter and the risk of conflict looms large. For ordinary Filipinos, Scarborough Shoal is more than a distant speck on the map. It represents a vital source of food, income, and cultural identity. For China, It is a symbol of its growing maritime power and a test of its resolve to defend what it sees as its historic rights. The daily lives of fishermen and the maneuvers of naval vessels intertwine in these contested waters, highlighting the human stakes behind the headlines. The clash over Scarborough Shoal is not just about rocks and reefs, but about two fundamentally different worldviews, one rooted in modern international law and multilateral agreements, the other in historical memory and national resurgence. Legal battles in international courts have failed to resolve the dispute, as each side clings to its own narrative and evidence. Despite years of negotiations, summits, and standoffs at sea, diplomacy has so far failed to bridge the divide. Scarborough Shoal remains a persistent flashpoint, a small atoll with the power to shape the future of an entire region. In 2013, the Philippines made a bold move on the world stage, taking China to court over a bitter maritime dispute that had simmered for years. The stakes were high. At issue were vast stretches of the South China Sea, rich in resources and vital to international shipping, but claimed almost entirely by China. The Philippines sought clarity and protection under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, a treaty designed to govern the world's oceans and resolve disputes peacefully. Their legal team meticulously built a case, arguing that China's sweeping claims had no basis in international law. In 2016, after years of hearings and deliberations, the Hague Tribunal delivered a landmark ruling. It was a sweeping victory for Manila. The court invalidated China's so-called 9-dash line, which Beijing used to claim nearly the entire sea, and affirmed the Philippines' rights to fish and operate at Scarborough Shoal and other contested areas. But China rejected the ruling outright, dismissing it as waste paper. Instead of backing down, Beijing doubled down, expanding its military presence, building artificial islands, and sending more ships into disputed waters, further escalating tensions. The tribunal's decision was legally binding, but it quickly became clear that international law has its limits. Without a mechanism to enforce the ruling, and with China's economic and military clout, the world watched as the judgment went unheeded. The episode exposed a harsh reality. When a major power refuses to comply, even the strongest legal decisions can be rendered powerless. The previous Philippine administration, wary of confrontation, downplayed the victory and sought to mend ties with Beijing. But today's leaders have taken a different approach, reviving the tribunal's ruling as the foundation of their diplomatic push and rallying international support for their cause. For many Filipinos, the legal victory remains a powerful symbol of their rights and sovereignty. It has inspired protests, shaped national debate, and become a rallying point for those demanding that their government stand firm against external pressure. Yet, on the water, the situation is more volatile than ever. Philippine and Chinese vessels face off in tense standoffs, each side unwilling to yield. As the world watches anxiously, the world is left to wonder, what good is law without the power and will to enforce it? The South China Sea remains a test case for the future of international order, and the answer is still far from clear. In October 2025, the Philippines released a new official map, clearly marking Scarborough Shoal as part of its territory. This was no routine update, it was a direct challenge to China, transforming a disputed feature into a formal part of the nation. The map is now a tool for diplomacy, education, and national resolve, signaling Manila's intent to stand firm. The timing followed a year of escalating confrontations, including water cannon attacks and standoffs at sea. By drawing this line, the Philippines dares China to escalate or accept international law. The map is a symbol, a line in the sea, raising the stakes for both sides. The world now faces a more confrontational, high-stakes dispute. China's response was swift: condemnation, military drills, and a reinforced blockade at Scarborough Shoal. Chinese officials called the Philippine map a serious provocation, insisting their claim is unchangeable. Within days, Chinese Coast Guard and militia vessels tightened their grip, physically blocking Philippine access. The PLA staged live-fire drills nearby, sending a clear warning to Manila and its allies. These gray zone tactics, blockades, water cannons, and intimidation, are designed to exhaust the Philippines without triggering outright war. China is betting that relentless pressure will force Manila to accept a new status quo. The contest is now as much about resolve as territory. The conflict has spilled into the digital world, where even map labels become battlegrounds. In April 2025, Google Maps updated its platform, labeling the waters west of the Philippines as the West Philippine Sea by default. For Filipinos, this was a symbolic victory. For China, a provocation. Beijing condemned Google, insisting on the South China Sea name, while Manila celebrated the global recognition. The episode highlights how tech companies, caught between nations, can shape international narratives. In the 21st century, even pixels and code are weapons in geopolitical disputes. Beyond the headlines, the Scarborough Shoal dispute has devastated thousands of Filipino fishermen. Once reliant on the shoal's rich waters, they now face harassment, dwindling catches, and mounting debt due to China's blockade. Many have been forced to abandon their livelihoods, while those who persist risk confrontation with Chinese vessels. The economic toll is staggering. Billions lost annually and entire communities in decline. Their plight has become a rallying cry, fueling nationalist sentiment and pressuring the government to act. Stories of courage and hardship circulate widely, turning sovereignty into a deeply personal issue for Filipinos. The human cost ensures this conflict remains at the forefront of the national agenda. For these communities, the fight for Scarborough Shoal is a fight for survival. The standoff is reshaping alliances across Asia and beyond. ASEAN remains divided, unable to take a strong stand against China due to internal splits and economic ties. The Philippines has turned to its treaty ally, the United States, deepening military cooperation and joint exercises. Washington has pledged to defend Philippine vessels under the Mutual Defense Treaty, raising the stakes for all involved. China accuses the U.S. of interference, while other regional powers like Japan and Australia quietly bolster Manila's position. The South China Sea is now a central arena of global competition, with rival coalitions forming and tensions rising. The risk of miscalculation grows as more navies crowd these contested waters. As of November 2025, the South China Sea remains a powder keg. The Philippines stands firm on its new map. China enforces its claim with ships and blockades. Both sides are locked in a dangerous stalemate, with no sign of compromise. China's strategy is attrition, wearing down Manila's resolve through constant pressure. The Philippines counters with transparency and international advocacy, hoping to rally global support. Diplomatic solutions seem distant, but practical arrangements, like codes of conduct, may help prevent disaster. The future of Scarborough Shoal will shape the Indo-Pacific for decades. The world must stay vigilant, for the lines drawn here could one day reach far beyond these waters.